صلوات. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. عن جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري أنه قال عن فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قال: سمعت فاطمة أنها قالت: دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام وقال: السلام عليك يا فاطمة. فقلت: عليك السلام. قال: إني أجد في بدني ضعفا. فقلت له: أعيذك بالله يا أبتا من الضعف. فقال: يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به. فآتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به، وصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال: السلام عليك يا أماه. فقلت: عليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال: يا أماه، إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله. فقلت: نعم، إن جدك تحت الكساء. فأقبل حسن نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء؟ فقال: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معه تحت الكساء. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال: السلام عليك يا أماه. فقلت: عليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال لي: يا أماه، إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت: نعم، إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء. فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا جدا، السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء؟ فقال: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معهما تحت الكساء. فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال: السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت: عليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال: يا فاطمة، إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله. فقلت: نعم، ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال له: وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وصي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء. ثم آتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بدعتي قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ بي رسول الله بطرف الكساء وأومي بيدي اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمة وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مضحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. فقال جبرائيل يا ربي أتأذن لي أن أحبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فحبت الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفوقوا. وقال علي إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي ثانيا يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم محموم إلا وفرج الله همه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة.
بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات. کاش میں دور پیمبر میں اٹھایا جاتا. کاش میں دور پیمبر میں اٹھایا جاتا. کاش میں دور پیمبر میں اٹھایا جاتا. بخدا قدموں میں سرکار کے پایا جاتا. کاش میں دور پیمبر میں اٹھایا جاتا. سات سرکار کے غزوات میں شامل ہوتا. سات سرکار کے غزوات میں شامل ہوتا. ان کی نصرت میں لہو میرا بہایا جاتا. کاش میں دور پیمبر میں اٹھایا جاتا. خاک ہو جاتا میں سرکار کے قدموں کے تلے. خاک ہو جاتا میں سرکار کے قدموں کے تلے. خاک کو خاک مدینہ میں ملایا جاتا. کاش میں دور پیمبر میں اٹھایا جاتا، کاش اے کاش میں ہوتا کوئی ایسی لکڑی، کاش اے کاش میں ہوتا کوئی ایسی لکڑی جس کو سرکار کے منبر میں لگایا جاتا، کاش میں دور پیمبر میں اٹھایا جاتا۔ صلوات۔ Inshallah, I'd like to recite a few lines in honor of Imam Jafar Sadiq. If you can please recite one more salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. صداقت ناز کرتی ہے، امامت ایسی ہوتی ہے، صداقت ناز کرتی ہے، امامت ایسی ہوتی ہے، صداقت ناز کرتی ہے، امامت ایسی ہوتی ہے، خدا خود ناز فرمائے، شریعت ایسی ہوتی ہے، صداقت ناز کرتی ہے، امامت ایسی ہوتی ہے، امام جعفر صادق صداقت کا فلک تہرے، امام جعفر صادق صداقت کا فلک تہرے، لقب ہی پر گیا صادق، صداقت ایسی ہوتی ہے، صداقت ناز کرتی ہے، امامت ایسی ہوتی ہے، خزانہ علم کا وہ دونوں ہاتھوں سے لٹاتے ہیں، خزانہ علم کا وہ دونوں ہاتھوں سے لٹاتے ہیں، سخی کہتے ہیں ہم اس کو، سخاوت ایسی ہوتی ہے، صداقت ناز کرتی ہے، امامت ایسی ہوتی ہے تاریخ ولادت ایک ان محمد کی، ہے تاریخ विलादत एक इनकी और मोहम्मद की, नबूवत और इमामत में मोहब्बत ऐसी होती है, सदाकत नाज करती है, इमामत ऐसी होती है। पर मोहम्मद व आल मोहम्मद सलावत।
Sayyid Hasan, Rizvi, respected elders, dearest brothers and sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum, Jamia wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. On this auspicious occasion of the Wiladat of our Holy Prophet and our Holy Sixth Imam, let us send our salutations to the Prophet and his household with a loud Nare Salawat. Surah Fatiha is requested for all marhumin listed on the screen, as well as all other marhumin. Surah Mubarak al-Fatiha. Dua Shafa'i Maris is requested for all those who are in need here and elsewhere. Let us recite together. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. Ya Allah. After tonight's program, during Niyaz, the youth will be having a bake sale. All proceeds will go towards Project Orange. Before tonight's majlis, I'd like to call up Brother Hussein Jaffer to say a few words. Brother Muhammad wa Muhammad salawat.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Sayyid Hasan Rizvi, brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. On the Wiladat of our Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and our beloved Sixth Imam, would like to wish you all Kushali Mubarak. As we look back on tonight and us living here in Orlando, we have a lot to be grateful for. Each of us had a very unique journey on how we got here, but the blessings of having a warm community and a kind community and many other blessings took a journey. So tonight I'd like all of us to take a small reflection, a journey back in time on how you got here to Orlando. For many of us, it was because we had family living here already. For many of us, it was the weather. For many of us, it would have been other circumstances that brought us here. It could have been all of these above. But one underlying fact that kept us here is that you had to have either a business or had to found a job or a profession here in Orlando to keep you here. Because the reality of it is that if you don't have a livelihood, you couldn't stay here. There are many who have wanted to come here and didn't make it. So with that being said, that there's this key, unique economic underlying fact that keeps us here because we have the blessings of rizq here. Now, it wasn't an easy journey for many of us. But if you look back, say, what if we could do something different? What if we could evolve right here in 2021, evolve and make Orlando not only a community that has all these factors, but make it easier, not only for newcomers, but for pre-existing businesses that are already here, pre-existing businesses as well as professionals who are here in Orlando. What if we could work together to evolve and make it a more vibrant, impactful community, adopting the sunnah of our Holy Prophet ﷺ? With that being said, it is a privilege and honor to announce the Economic Education Forum to be held here at HIC on December 4th. That is from 5:30 to 9:30 p.m. here at HIC. And this forum is for working professionals and businesses where we're going to go through a few important factors. We're going to have a networking introduction. This is where working professionals and businesses can introduce themselves towards each other and have a sort of a session as to how we can work better. We all are aware that the real estate landscape here in Orlando has changed drastically in the last 10 years. In fact, it's changed drastically in the last 2 years. It's no longer sort of a low traffic, low density marketplace. There's a lot more traffic. The real estate prices have been going up. But let's get a better understanding of what's really going on. So we will have a local realtor give us a sort of a better understanding of how it has evolved. Aside from the real estate market update, we'll also have personal financial management tips. We're all families working in Orlando, and budgeting, making good budget decisions, learning how to invest to help our families is quite vital. Rather than trying to figure that out on our own, let's get a professional here to help us, show us how we can do that. So this business forum will provide that. Furthermore, community economic development. If we really are going to grow and grow cohesively as a community, we need to start working to trade goods and services amongst one another. You know, when as we live on earth, we are always buying goods and services. That's just the reality of life. But why not? And sometimes we trade it amongst each other, and sometimes it is just through a monetized approach, through a currency that you buy a good or service. But are we truly working with one another as Muslims to do that, or are we really going towards non-Muslim marketplaces to get that good or service? So this promoting community economic development amongst one another as Shia brothers and sisters is one of a part of this economic forum. And last but not least, with the blessings of Allah, inshallah, it will be very successful. So again, it's on Saturday, December 4th, from 5:45 to 9:30 p.m. here at HIC. There was already an HIC WhatsApp broadcast as to how you can sign up for the forum. It does require a registration. There is no cost to it. Dinner is going to be served that night for those working professionals and businesses that attend. And the further announcements will be on the HIC newsletter, as well as the weekly HIC WhatsApp broadcasts. Please, this is an incredible opportunity that we're being blessed with here, again, on Saturday, December 4th. And we look forward to all those who are eligible to please come register for this amazing opportunity for our community to grow collectively. With that being said, would like to call on Sayyid Hasan Rizvi for tonight's majalis. Salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد. Once more, for the love of Rasulullah and Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين شفيع المذنبين رحمة للعالمين سيدنا والنبينا وحبيب قلوبنا والشفيع نفوسنا والطبيب ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد صلوات على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد مؤمنين مؤمنات brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman Salamun alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. From my family to all of you, and Eid Mubarak on this blessed day, this eve of the 17th of Rabi-ul-Awwal, as we celebrate the birth anniversary of two holy ma'sumin, of course, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. You know, those of us who claim to be Shia, most of us do so with, some sense of pride, right? We are proud, we have this iftikhar that we are on the path and we're striving towards gaining and expressing the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt, alayhimus salam. And we recognize that, this is a good thing for us, it's helpful in our life, it brings us all these barakat. But sometimes we're unable to really understand the depth and the breadth of how those blessings really extend. Sometimes we end up looking for very specific things and we don't end up necessarily seeing them. And it may even have us question our faith sometimes, right? Or are we doing the right thing? Are we on the right path? Is Shiism really the right thing? Sometimes people question this, right? So I wanted to share a story from Islamic history that, might highlight this point and might give us another approach to think about. So, among the Arab tribes, there were basically two different, right? There were those that lived within the cities, either within Mecca itself or within Medina or any of the main metropolitan, areas, or those that we called the A'rab, the Bedouins, who lived outside in the deserts, right? You can call them sort of like, I don't know, what word you would use, not necessarily right now, but, they were travelers. They didn't necessarily have a city-style, city lifestyle. So they lived out in the deserts, they would be roaming around, they'd typically be farming, they'd have livestock, right? They'd live very simple lives. So one of these tribes, one of these Bedouin tribes was Banu Sa'ad, right? Very famous tribe. One of these years in Islamic history, they had actually been suffering from severe poverty due to a famine that was occurring. So they didn't have much food, their livestock weren't doing very well, so they were suffering there. Now, most of these tribes had like a specific skill set that they would be pretty good at, right? The men would be good at one thing, and usually the women would be good at something else. And because everybody sort of delegated their skill sets amongst these different tribes, they would, because of, this idea of trading, amongst themselves, they would all convene in either Mecca or Medina. They would gather these goods, they would trade, and then they would go back. Everybody would be taken care of like that. And they would continue on in sort of like a family or a tribal way where they would work on that skill set, and then they would earn like that. But if ever one tribe, because of whatever reason, like a famine or a drought or poverty, whatever it was, something happened, then that tribe may have suffered. Sometimes it was just one group, meaning just like the male, like if the men, let's say, were like the Banu Sa'ad, right? They were shepherds. So if their sheep suffered, okay, that would have been bad for the men. But sometimes the women, they had their own sense or source of livelihood that would have made up and had to have made up for what the men couldn't gain. So the Banu Sa'ad, the women of Banu Sa'ad, they were known for their abilities or known as being good foster mothers. Because back then, a lot of times, when children were born, they weren't raised like children are right now. They're raised in their own households pretty much, right? Back then, they would be sent out almost immediately with Bedouins usually, specifically good foster mothers, to go and be nursed by them and to be trained and raised by them. So Banu Sa'ad and the women of Banu Sa'ad specifically were known as one of the best foster mothers to send your children to. And the reason that people would send their kids with Banu Sa'ad, or any Bedouin, but specifically Banu Sa'ad, is because out in the deserts, they say that their Arabic was uncorrupted. It was original. So if you wanted your child to learn the best Arabic, you'd send them out to the Bedouin, which actually would be opposite right now, right? Because normally we would say in the city or in a metropolitan area, this is where people are all fancy, they have proper English. But if you go out into, like the boonies, right, or to a ghetto area, it's more Ebonics or slang or not traditional formal English, right? But back then it was the opposite. The most eloquent Arabic, the unadulterated, purified one, the pure one, was with the Arabs who didn't mingle with other people, right? The ones who were out there. So Banu Sa'ad was known for that. So now, again, this famine's occurring. This abject poverty is occurring among Banu Sa'ad. So a bunch of women get together. They say about 10 women say, we have to now make a trip to Mecca. And we need to go and find kids that we can foster because we need to earn, extra living because the men can't earn right now because of what's going on. So we need to make up for that loss. So they say these 10 women, some of them went with their husbands. They traveled towards Mecca to find this work, right, to find kids so that they could foster. On their way there, one of the ladies of Banu Sa'ad, who was going to be a foster mother as well, who was on her way to find a child in Mecca, she got left behind. And the reason she got left behind, now everybody was suffering, but her, for many reasons, she got left behind in the caravan, right? So the rest of the caravan, the 9 other women, or 9 other families, they went on without her and they reached Mecca before her. Why? One is that she herself, because she couldn't eat properly because of the poverty, she didn't have a lot of food. So she was unable to produce milk, right? She had young children, so she couldn't lactate. So she couldn't nurse her own children properly, her young children. So then usually in that case, your next resort would be, okay, if you have a camel or an animal with you, a sheep or a camel, you take their milk and then you feed it to your children. But her problem also was that her camels and her other livestock, they weren't eating as well. So they were also hungry. So because they weren't producing milk, again, all of her children were basically starving as they're making this trip to Mecca. So the camel, right, that her riding camel is slowed down. So she's slower than everybody else. Her children are hungry, so she has to make constant stops, right? So it's not looking good for her. But finally, with all these difficulties, she finally makes it to Mecca. But because those other 9 women got there before her, they got to pick what we would say is the best of the best of the foster children who were there. Basically, they would say 10 children who were available. 10 mothers went there, and there were 10 children who were available, who had recently been born, who mothers in Mecca, families in Mecca were saying, we're looking for foster mothers. Banu Sa'ad had come, perfect timing, so we want to send them out with somebody, right? So those 9 mothers who were there first, they picked the 9 best of the best, from wealthy tribes. So they were good to go. One child there was being rejected constantly. He was just left, and no mother wanted to take this child. Why? Because this child was an orphan. So every mother that came from Banu Sa'ad and saw that, okay, this kid is an orphan. So because the father's not there, that means that the income's not there. If the income's not there, again, the whole point of all these mothers coming there is because they need the extra income. They're like, there's a chance we're not going to get paid. So every mother that came and saw this orphan child, they said, look, there's a good chance this family's not going to pay up. This mother won't pay up. So, forget this child. We'll go to somebody else. So 9 rejections happened to this child. Now, this lady, again, this final mother, she shows up late. There's only 1 child left. Again, this child has been now rejected 9 times. So she's there, but with her and her husband. And they're now having a discussion. He's like, look, we came here for a source of income. There's this 1 kid left. We feel bad, but how are we going to get any money from them? How are we going to get any money from this family? The father's not present. What if this mother doesn't make any money? then this whole point of us taking this child back with us to our, our area in the desert, we're not going to make that money. We might be taking on more burdens than we can handle. But there was a soft spot in this heart of this mother. She said, no, all these other mothers left with a child, I don't want to leave childless. I can't just leave this child like this too. No, we should take this child with us. So she convinced the husband. They said, fine, yeah, we'll take this child. So this husband who was there, his name was Al-Harith. The wife, meaning this mother, this foster mother, was Halima. The grandfather of this orphan was Abdul Muttalib. The mother was Amina, and this orphan child who was rejected 9 times was none other than Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. So if you knew your history, I'm sure you pieced it together as I was going through that. If not, then, well, you just got a history lesson, right? So Rasulullah right in the beginning was being rejected, right? But he was accepted by Halima, although they say that there was another mother who was nursing Rasulullah for a few days, maybe 3 days after he was born. After he was born for 3 days, one of his aunts, I think her name was Thuwaylib, she was nursing. I think she was one of the slave women of Abu Lahab. So she had been nursing Rasulullah for 3 days. And then basically when he was 3-4 days old is when Halima had showed up. Then they discussed. Amina had given her in the care of Halima, and then they went back towards the desert. The minute Rasulullah came into the picture, now think back. From now, Banu Sa'ad has been suffering. Specifically the family of Al-Harith and Halima, they've been suffering. And in fact, they were doing worse than everybody else. What they didn't understand, but maybe this was mother's intuition, maybe Halima had seen something within this personality that, look, this person is going to be a wasila for barakah. This personality, this young child is going to bring something to our family that we can't even imagine. And this is why I wanted to mention this story. And they say from the minute that they took Rasulullah into their care, the flock of sheep that they had, meaning Al-Harith and Halima, that they had was one of the only ones that actually had healthy sheep living. All other livestock and sheep among Banu Sa'ad were still suffering. They were having trouble and they were unhealthy. They weren't giving milk. But Al-Harith and Halima, their livestock started doing well out of nowhere. In addition, we said before, Halima wasn't lactating, so she couldn't even nurse her own children. The minute she took Rasulullah under her care and promised to try to nurse her, and again, in her mind, she's thinking, I couldn't even produce milk for my own child. How am I going to take care of this one? The minute she agreed to take Rasulullah, and that's the minute she began producing milk. More milk than she had ever had imagined, and began nursing Rasulullah. In the 2 years that they were together, they said that we had more blessings and barakat than we could have ever imagined. We became the luckiest, the most blessed individuals among Banu Sa'ad. And they had no idea that this was something possible. And it got so much so, now 2 years after she's done, like usually 2 years, they say 2 to 4 years was the weaning time, right? That was the max time. Most narrations say 2 years. So now she was weaning Rasulullah. She comes back towards Makkah. And now it's her time to give him back to Amina, the mother, right? But the thing is this, she saw that, look, this child has been such a great source of blessing for me and our family. I can't just let him go like this. So she begged and pleaded. And as any person would do, right, whenever you're about to go and make a very difficult request, can you imagine? I mean, most of us don't understand this sort of foster mother, nursing mother thing, but you can imagine making this kind of very difficult request, going to somebody who has this power and authority and right over us, and making a request by all accounts we have no right to ask and will probably be rejected. She's probably in her heart, as she's making the trek from her area up to Mecca to talk to the mother of this child, she's thinking and making this dua like, please, let me keep this child and keep this barakat. And perhaps it's because of this that, when she finally reaches there, she's begging and pleading with Amina, please let me keep this child. Let me take care of this child for a few more years. It just so happened that in Mecca at that time, there was a cholera outbreak. And because of that, Amina said, actually, as a mother, I want to see my child again. But because he definitely will be safer with you, then yes, you can keep him for a few more years until this outbreak goes away. So because of her begging, her pleading, her true sincere love for the child, and her attachment to this wasila for her ni'mat and barakat, she had this blessing for another, they say 2, 4, 5 years maybe. And again, once finally that time was up, she came back to Makkah and delivered the child back to Amina. So this is a story, maybe some of you have heard the details, maybe you haven't. Now I want to grab some lessons from there and share, inshallah, if you can recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. If you can tell, the central theme that I want to really extract from this is about faqr, it's poverty. Halima and Al-Harith, right, or the Banu Sa'ad in general, but specifically this family, were pretty much the poorest of the poorest tribes among Bedouins too. So they were, at the lowest. But they ended up becoming the richest of the richest because of just one child, because of one small decision that Halima had made, because her heart reached out to this rejected child. A lot of us don't see things like this, right? Whenever we think about poverty, we think about masa'ib and musibah and difficulties, we don't think about it as a channel, as a medium, and a way to get more blessings. We actually think about it as the opposite. We think we're actually being punished. But in fact, as we will share a hadith from our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa He's reported to have said, Al-masa'ib minhun min Allah. That calamities, masa'ib, difficulties, trials, these are endowments. These are trusts from Allah that are given to us. Right? Allah says, look, I don't give these readily to anybody. I'm giving them just to you because you should be able to handle them. Meaning only mu'mineen get things like this. Only mu'mineen get tried with these sort of difficulties. And he continues, وَالْفَقْرُ مَخْزُونٌ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. Poverty, meaning like financial difficulty, or being dependent constantly, one would say, is actually a treasure from Allah. It's something that's kept with Allah that He divvies out to certain individuals. So this is completely opposite to a lot of our thinking. And inshallah, maybe if we get a chance in the business education forum, we're going to open some of these points up a little bit more about the sort of different way that Islamic economics approaches how society needs to view these finances. It's a lot different than a capitalistic or even a socialistic society. It's much, much different, right? But we don't have time to go through that now. Think about this. How many of us right now are looking at things in a very physical, worldly, financial way, right? Just the variables that are out there. If we see something right now, and I've had people question me about this all the time. They're about to make a decision, and they're at a crossroads. It's like, look, I know the Islamic thing to do. I know the fiqh ruling, or I know the akhlaqi thing to do. If I make the decision, there's a good chance, I'll take a hit in my portfolio, or my business will take a hit, or I'm going to lose clients, or I might lose the job, or I might not lose I might lose the promotion, or whatever. So their approach to it is that this difficulty is going to make me lose money. So God doesn't want me to go through poverty, right? So maybe I should. It's okay. God will understand, right? If I, shake the hand of this interviewer who is the opposite gender, right? Or if I sit down at this dinner table with somebody who's drinking alcohol, right? God will understand. It's not a big deal. Right? We have to rationalize this stuff or fake rationalize this stuff sometime. That's what we do, right? But for a mu'min, they say, look, these sort of difficulties are the exact things which are placed in our way for true wealth, both in the dunya and in the akhirah. You see, it was that difficulty, the financial and difficulty in decision-making that Halima had to make, and Harith as well. If it wasn't for those decisions, they wouldn't have actually had the barakat and the ni'mat that they were received just from not even accepting Islam. They didn't become Muslims from taking this child. There was no Islam at that point then, right? Rasulullah didn't tell them, hey, become Muslims when he was a baby. That didn't happen. They did become Muslims later on. But from the beginning, it was just the personality, just her love for the child, the personality of Rasulullah, which changed their lives forever. That's it. So even something like reaching out like that, not rejecting the teachings and the personality of the Prophet has a big effect too. Think about how many times you and I might think we have this love in our hearts for Rasulullah, but just like those 9 other mothers who came, one by one rejected Rasulullah. One by one, because they weren't able to see the spiritual benefits that he was going to give. All they were looking for were physical, financial, worldly benefits. All of them rejected and lost both dunya and akhirah. But Al-Harith and Halima were the only ones, because they saw that, look, this child will be a source for barakah for us, let's take him. Our heart opens up to somebody like that. And if we start approaching finances in that perspective, or barakat in general, then we'll see that maybe that's the way we should be following the teachings of Rasulullah. Is we don't want to abandon and reject Rasulullah as they had done. For us right now, as we move forward and make our decisions in our daily lives, as we celebrate the birth of Rasulullah, We have to think about our own lives. How many times have we really rejected him? Nobody claims that we hate him and we're actually, we don't say we push, physically push him aside, but the actual teachings that he's brought, the individuals who are coming with these different ideas, which are pushing us slowly and slowly farther and farther away from that true, what we call Muhammadan Islam. Right? The orthodox teachings that you and I have grown up with. Individuals are coming and pushing us away from these things. So how many of us are now coming and slowly rejecting these ideas? Why? Because it's rational or it's more scientific or whatever these kind of reasons happen to be. We have to make sure that we're holding on to the true, rightful teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. And we'll end with this final hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wa salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajal. إنما يعرف قدر النعمة or ni'am بمقاسة ضدها. The only way the true value of a ni'mah, of a blessing, can be understood, the only way you can get ma'rifah of that is if you understand its opposite. And this is why you'll see, even in the financial world, the ones who are the most successful usually are the ones who come from abject poverty, right? The ones who start with nothing, when they finally get to a higher place, they understand the value of money. Because they say, look, I came from nothing, now I understand the value of every single penny, every single dollar, right? It makes a difference. For somebody who's, let's say, born in wealth, they may not understand that, right? They may mess around with money. And that's why you'll see in other narrations, they say, look, that ability to become humble, it's easier for those who are in poverty. Right? It doesn't mean that we're all like starving on the streets, but for many of us who are living paycheck to paycheck, who have to take loans, who are living the kind of traditional lifestyle that many of us have to live in this society, where we don't enjoy the luxury of just being independent and buying whatever we want and doing whatever we want. Other people have that luxury, and alhamdulillah, may Allah grant them more. And of course, Allah will grant them more as long as they recognize that that blessing comes to them because Allah requires them to give it out. Right? But for others who don't have that opportunity yet, who are still trying to figure out how to navigate a dependent financial lifestyle, then the idea is that if we can truly humble ourselves when we have nothing or have very little, then this opens up the door for us to start getting a little bit more, little by little. Because if we understand how to deal with the little bits that we have right now, right? Those of us who don't have much, who can give out, let's say, $5, $10 donations when we see somebody, struggling on the street, for example. If you can deal with that, then definitely that kind of individual will know the value that when they actually come to a position where they have a lot more wealth, then they'll be much more likely to give it out. And I'm sure you've seen these, and I don't like these social media, experiments and these videos and things like that. But one thing that usually is a common theme is that when, these guys, they give out money to those who are homeless, one of the first things they go out and do is give it to other people that they know that are homeless, right? So there's a natural inclination for those who have, who come from a perspective or a place of humility, who have seen what it is to live a tough lifestyle. They understand what to do when they actually get a more, let's say, easier lifestyle. So our du'as on this kind of night shouldn't be necessarily that we're praying for ease. It should be that, Allah, if you're going to give me difficulty, give me the difficulties that the Imams are saying that these are the way for us to understand how to get your blessings. If you're going to give me the difficulties, allow us to at least get the wisdom and the humility so that I can earn more. If I'm not going to be humble from them, then don't give me this, right? Don't give me any extra more. Give me wealth instead, because wealth at least, then you'll be okay. So every single, financial lifestyle that we might be given, whether it's wealth, whether it's, basic middle class, or whether it's poverty, each and every one of those lifestyles are there and they're conducive to each and every person's, own personality type. What we see in the hadith as well is that, as Rasulullah says, that the majority of people that he sees in Jannah, though, are those who are impoverished. Why? Because it's much easier to come to a place of humility from being impoverished than it is from a place of wealth. I'm not hating on the wealthy over here, that's not the point, but these are Rasulullah's words. It's very tough when you're at a high place to come down. When you're already at a low, then slowly you already have that humility, right? So if we are those who are not doing so well, may Allah give us and grant us that humility and increase it. If we are at the place where we have a lot, may Allah increase that, but also make sure we have the wisdom to give it out and share those blessings with everyone else. And we pray that Allah helps us gain the ma'rifah on a night like this, where we celebrate the birth of these two holy personalities, that we're not just looking for financial, physical blessings, that we truly understand that simply being attached to these personalities themselves is one of the greatest blessings that we haven't even asked for. Most of us were just born with this. Allah had given us this great blessing from our birth. From our inception, we have been given this connection to the holy personalities of Rasulullah and the rest of the Ahlul Bayt. Let's not waste it and squander these wonderful blessings. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala Ahl Bayt Tayyibin Tahirin. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Sayyid Hasan Rizvi, respected elders, brothers, sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. On the joyous occasion of the birth anniversary of our holy prophet, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and Imam Jafar as-Sadiq alayhi salam, on behalf of the Board of Trustees and the Managing Committee, we wish you all Kushadi Mubarak. On this joyous occasion, the Managing Committee is pleased to record and announce the following two engagements. First one, Faisal Ali, son of Farhana Asaria and Sajjad and Nabila Zahra, Mukhi of Orlando, Florida, to Zainab, daughter of Zakira Shairoz and Dr. Mohsin Thala of Toronto, Canada. Second one, Ali Akbar, son of Tahira and Ashik Ali Tejani of Orlando, Florida, to Samia, daughter of Sakina and Sajjad Saleh Muhammad of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Salawat. On behalf of the community and the management, we would like to congratulate the families and pray to Almighty Subhanahu wa Ta'ala to shower His blessing on the couple as they start this new chapter in their life. Par Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad salawat.
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. With your loudest voices, brothers and sisters, Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Khuda ka zikr kare, ذکر مصطفیٰ نہ کریں خدا کا ذکر کریں ذکر مصطفیٰ نہ کریں ہماری منہ پہ ہو ایسی زبان خدا نہ کریں ہماری منہ پہ ہو ایسی زبان خدا نہ کریں خدا کا ذکر کریں در رسول پہ ایسا کبھی نہیں دیکھا
درِ رسول پہ ایسا کبھی نہیں دیکھا، کوئی سوال کرے اور وہ عطا نہ کریں، کوئی سوال کرے اور وہ عطا نہ کریں. محمد وعلى محمد صلوات.
Brothers and sisters, this is a new munajat I've not recited before. Inshallah, you guys will help me out together so we can all recite together. Muhammad wa ala Muhammad salawat.
Mustafa jane rahmat pe laakho salam. Mustafa jane rahmat pe laakho salam. Mustafa jane rahmat pe laakho salam. شمع بز میں ہدایت پہ لاکھوں سلام. مصطفیٰ جان رحمت پہ لاکھوں سلام. مصطفیٰ.
I can't hear anybody. One more time.
مصطفیٰ جان رحمت پہ لاکھوں سلام. مصطفیٰ جان رحمت. ہم غریبوں کے آقا پہ بے حد درود. ہم غریبوں کے آقا پہ بے حد درود. ہم فقیروں کی ثروت پہ لاکھوں سلام. مصطفیٰ جان رحمت پہ لاکھوں سلام. مصطفیٰ. اس کی باتوں کی لحاظت پہ لاکھوں درود. اس کی باتوں کی لحاظت پہ لاکھوں درود. اس کے خطبے کی ہیبت پہ لاکھوں سلام. مصطفیٰ جان رحمت پہ لاکھوں سلام. مصطفیٰ.
افضل الصلاة محمد وآل محمد.
یا رسول خدا سلام علیک. یا حبیب خدا سلام علیک. یا رسول خدا سلام علیک. یا حبیب خدا. فرش پر دھوم ہے، عرش پر دھوم ہے. بد نصیبی ہے اس کی جو محروم ہے. پھر ملے گی یہ شب کی اس کو معلوم ہے. اہم لطف خدا آج کی رات ہے. یا رسول خدا سلام علیک. یا حبیب خدا. مانگ لو چشم تر مانگ لو درد دلوار حسن نظر مانگ لو کملی والے کی نگری میں گھر مانگ لو مانگنے کا مزہ آج کی رات ہے یا رسول خدا سلام علیک یا حبیب مومنو آج گنجے سخا لوٹ لو مومنو آج گنجے سخا لوٹ لو اے مریضو شفا لوٹ لو آسی اور رحمت مصطفیٰ لوٹ لو باب رحمت کھلا آج کی رات ہے یا رسول خدا سلام علیک یا حبیب نور محفل پہ چادر تنی نور کی نور پھیلا ہوا آج کی رات ہے چاندنی میں ہے ڈوبے ہوئے دو جہان کون جلوہ نما آج کی رات ہے محمد وآل محمد صلوات
افضل السلام
والسلام علیک یا رسول اللہ
محمد وآل محمد
صلو علی محمد
صاحبو 4 مصرے نبی کی شان میں امید ہے کہ بہت لطف اٹھاؤ گے بابا سے بلند نعرے صلوات اللہم
صلی علی محمد وآل محمد
نبی کے نور کا صدقہ ہے کائنات تمام نبی کے نور کا صدقہ ہے کائنات تمام نہ آسمان ہوتا نہ یہ زمین ہوتی نہ آسمان ہوتا نہ یہ زمین ہوتی انہی کی ذات سے ہے روشن جہاں ورنہ انہی کی ذات سے ہے روشن جہاں ورنہ یہ روشنی تو تصور میں بھی نہیں ہوتی بابا سے بلند نعرے صلوات اللہم صلی اللہ نعرے تکبیر نعرے رسالت نعرہ حیدری
زمین میلی نہیں ہوتی زمن میلا نہیں ہوتا زمین میلی نہیں ہوتی زمن میلا نہیں ہوتا زمین میلی نہیں ہوتی زمن میلا نہیں ہوتا
زمین میلی نہیں ہوتی
کفن میلا نہیں ہوتا. جو نام مصطفیٰ چومے نہیں دکھتی کبھی آنکھیں.
جو نام مصطفیٰ چومے نہیں دکھتی کبھی آنکھیں.
پہن لے پیار جو ان کا بدن میلا نہیں ہوتا. پہن لے پیار جو ان کا بدن میلا نہیں ہوتا. محبت کملی والے سے وہ جذبہ ہے سنو لوگو.
محبت کملی والے سے وہ جذبہ ہے سنو لوگو.
یہ جس من میں سما جائے وہ من میلا نہیں ہوتا. یہ جس من میں سما جائے وہ من میلا نہیں ہوتا. نبی کا دامن رحمت پکڑ لے جہاں والوں.
نبی کا دامن رحمت پکڑ لے جہاں والوں.
رہے جب تک یہ ہاتھوں میں چلن میلا نہیں ہوتا. رہے جب تک یہ ہاتھوں میں چلن میلا نہیں ہوتا. زمین میلی نہیں ہوتی زمن میلا نہیں ہوتا. محمد کے غلاموں کا کفن میلا نہیں ہوتا. محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد. بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد. بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد. بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد. بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد. شب قدر قرآن سامت کی صورت. شب قدر قرآن سامت کی صورت مکمل ہوئی ہے ثنائے محمد. بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد. بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد. بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد. سر عرش معراج کی انتہا پہ. سر عرش معراج کی انتہا پہ نہ پہنچا کوئی بھی سوائے محمد. بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد. بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد برے چین سے بستر مصطفیٰ پہ برے چین سے بستر مصطفیٰ پہ علی سو رہے ہیں بجائے محمد نعرہ حیدری یا علی جیو جیو علی سو رہے ہیں بجائے محمد بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد برے چین سے بستر مصطفیٰ پہ برے چین سے بستر مصطفیٰ پہ علی سو رہے ہیں بجائے محمد بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد یا علی بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد یہ من کن تو مولا سے ثابت ہوا ہے یہ من کن تو مولا سے ثابت ہوا ہے ولائے علی ہے ولائے محمد بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد ہے پوچھتے نبی پہ بقائے نبوت ہے پوچھتے نبی پہ بقائے نبوت وہی آئے سرنا اٹھائے محمد بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد یا علی جیو 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 یا علی حیدری یا علی مولا جیو جیو بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد محمد وعلی محمد صلوات اللہ صاحبو آخر میں وہ محفل نہیں جس میں مولا کائنات کی ذکر نہ ہو یہ جو ہم پیش کر رہے ہیں اس میں بہت لطف اٹھائیں گے انشاءاللہ خاص توجہ چاہتے ہیں بآواز بلند نعرے صلوات اللہ جس نے مولا علی کو پکارا نہیں 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 میرے مشکل خوشا کو پکارا نہیں اس کا دنیا میں کوئی سہارا نہیں یاری اس کا دنیا میں کوئی سہارا نہیں اس کا دنیا میں کوئی سہارا نہیں جس نے مولا علی کو پکارا نہیں صرف
مولا علی کا یہ کردار ہے، صرف مولا علی کا یہ کردار ہے، کل کے مشکل کشا کا یہ کردار ہے، کل کے حاجت روا کا یہ کردار ہے، سب کے مشکل کشا کا یہ کردار ہے، زیر کر کے بھی دشمن کو مارا نہیں، زیر کر کے بھی دشمن کو مارا نہیں، جس نے مولا علی کو پکارا نہیں، جس نے مولا علی کو پکارا نہیں، پکارا نہیں، جس نے مولا علی کو پکارا نہیں۔
افضل السلام والسلام علیک یا رسول اللہ محمد و آل محمد، لعیب بیمار داشتے بلا، جو بیمار ہو جلد الہی برائے امام زمان، ہمیں حول معشر سے دے تو قیامت معشور، رہو با علی اٹھے قبر سے کہے کہ ہم یا علی ہے، پانچ و نو مل چہار داتان احمد ولی زہرا و شبیر سے لے تا امام زمان، شبیر سے لے تا امام زمان، ایک ایک پہ صدا صلوات پڑھو، صلوات صلوات و سلام یا امام زمان، فرماؤ ظہور یا امام زمان۔
بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم، اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد، اللہم کل ولیک الحجة ابن الحسن، صلواتک علیہ وعلا في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا ودليلا وأينا تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا حسين شهيد بكربلاء، السلام عليك يا علي زين العابدين، السلام عليك يا محمد الباكر، السلام عليك يا جعفر الصادق، السلام عليك يا موسى الكاظم، السلام عليك يا علي الرضا، السلام عليك يا محمد التكي الجواد، السلام عليك يا علي النكي الحادي، السلام عليك يا حسن العسكري. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والزمان الأمان 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 السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته